Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar this evening. I'm just going to give attendees another minute or so to get on the line. Yeah, we're at 6:59 on my watch here, so we'll give a couple more minutes. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say that I am Hiltrud Dawson. I'm one of the health promotion consultants at Best Start by Health Nexus, and I am the team lead there as well. And I want to most of all apologize for the webinar. We tried to do at 1 o'clock and GoToMeeting was just not cooperating. We had major audio problems and just had to stop during the webinar, and so reschedule for tonight. So some of you are able to make it, some are not. The webinar will be recorded, so I'm hoping that you can share the link, and the link has gone out to anyone, and we'll share the recording link with anyone that was registered in the earlier webinar with all of you and with all of our networks. If you have a question, please type it into the question box. We will do questions at a couple of spots during the webinar, and so there'll be plenty of time, I think, to answer that. We do have a presenter with us, Margaret Boersma. Margaret was a teacher with York Region Public School Board for 36 years, and she's now a teacher trainer, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that when in a minute. So I think we will move on to the first slide. So our webinar today is setting up a positive learning environment for children at home, and I'm sure that all of you are looking at that, struggling with that, and in one way or other trying to make this work. So let's talk about the challenges, about it and how we can meet those challenges. I also want to remind you there is information on the Ministry of Education website, not a lot, but a little bit. And also all the school boards are setting up their online learning. I believe it's pretty much up and running this week with some issues still being sorted out, but most of it seems to be up and running. So if you're not quite sure what to do or where to tune in, check with your local school board for that as well. So the schools will be closed at least until May 4th. And just to let you know, so, and also on the ministry website, you can see that there is some emergency childcare, so you can take a look at that if you need that. And then there is some supplementary resources for elementary and secondary students for learning at home. And Margaret will give us a whole bunch of tips and help on how to really make that fun and everything else. So I'm going to hand it right over to our presenter.
Hello, I'm Margaret Boersma from Creative Education in Action. So that is the company I'm creating since I retired from the school board, York Region District School Board, which is a public school board. And I still work with students as a teaching artist in a couple of school boards in the Toronto area. Welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a few questions here. So we're all adjusting to a new normal. The virus came suddenly and the impact on all of us is tremendous. Many people feel completely disempowered, like they have no control. As someone who trains teachers in social and emotional learning, can you talk about a way to think about it?
Yes, well, we're all adjusting to a new normal. Many of us as parents, I'm a parent as well, many of us have lost our jobs. or we're working from home or trying to. And some of us are essential workers and we need to work and find childcare for our children. And at the same time, we're expected to carry on with learning for our children, which is what the teachers are doing a little bit, but you're the ones that are supervising your children while you're trying to work at home, many of you. So that is not an easy dynamic. And for your children, it's not easy either, because they're not able to play with their friends, and their children are very interactive, very face-to-face people. They need their friends, they need their people in their lives to be there for them. They can't go out to the parks, they don't go to school every day. So being at home all the time is very abnormal, and we are all adjusting. Next slide. So I'm going to provide you with a few tips that might help you. Maybe you can relate to this slide here. I don't know how much work you can get done at home, but we need to allow ourselves to feel the emotions that come with this change, whatever they are. And we need to model for our children good ways to express emotion. So if you need to cry, do that. It's okay. It's okay if children even see that, and then explain to them afterwards that it's not their fault. You're upset because, and then just explain it really briefly, but they must know it's not their fault. Children are very egocentric, and at different ages, but in generally all of them are very egocentric, and they blame themselves for whatever happens in with parents, in the relationships with parents. If parents are upset, children think it's their fault. So just tell them this is not your fault, and that will get them off the hook and being able to manage their own emotions better. So that's really important. But children need role models. Children mirror what what adults in their lives do, and even what other children do. They'll copy it. And what you can tell them something, but what they see sticks mostly. So role model some good ways to express emotion, like pounding a pillow or counting to 10 slowly, or expressing some words if you have to in gibberish. I mean, that might have been a funny example, but if you're really angry, people can see it, but don't swear, because that's a role model they'll take over as well. We're going through grief and various stages of grief, and the stages of grief can go forward and backward, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere with it, perhaps. Children are grieving as well. Everyone's grieving because they're missing their normal, and some days we're feeling more empowered than others. But denial is a form of grieving, like what's happening is unreal or surreal. Sometimes we bargain, that's another stage in grieving. If I stay isolated right now, then things will go back to normal really, really, really soon, like tomorrow. Or you might be sad about losing a job or an opportunity, or about the future, or even the present situation. And it's all normal. And we have to allow ourselves to be human, even in front of our children, but manage our reactions. And the final stage of grieving is accepting. When we can finally get to the point of accepting the way things are, sometimes we call it the what's so. It's the facts. The facts don't have any emotions. They just are. We're the ones that add the emotion or take meaning out of things when it's just the facts. But a success mentor that I like to listen to, called Darren Hardy, I have a quote I can read. We must be careful of all the things we bring into our minds. End the pandemic of anxiety, fear, stress, and depression. There are many, many resources of hope, potential, and possibility. We need to take control of our mind, and therefore, when we do that, we take control of our lives. So one practical way to do that is just to watch the news like once a day for 15 minutes, because everything else is just reruns anyways. And we do that in order to protect our minds and to feed our minds, to make sure that our bodies are strong. So feed your mind with things that you need. Like you need some kind of distraction sometimes, like a good book or a good movie. You can get lost in. Do something creative for yourself. I'm talking to the parents, but this also applies to the children. I'll say more about the children too after. So like something creative, like creating a video. Even if you have a phone or something, you could create something nice and send it to your relatives or friends. A photo collage, a poem, a rap, or a song. Even if you do knitting or some kind of woodwork, something creative is really, really healthy. Learn something new, like a skill or a language, or meditate and pray. Those are really good ways to get centered. Next slide. So when you're at the accepting phase, maybe your family will look like this a little bit more. We'll talk about setting a routine too in a few minutes, but these people are into a good routine right now, it looks like. Next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how children learn. Children learn through play and discovery. All children want to learn, and all children are learning all the time. They're even learning things you don't want them to learn, and you don't want them to pick up on, but they do. So here are some ideas. For young children, having fun with Play-Doh it's like clay, but that can entertain them for a long period of time. And I have a recipe at the end I'll give you for making Play-Doh, and there's lots on the internet. Creating finger paint masterpieces with shaving cream and food coloring, or drawing supplies. If you do have paint in the house, an old shower curtain or a plastic tablecloth from the dollar store are great to lay down on the floor, or even on the table. I would do it on the floor. So you put the old sheet down, and then they can do a lot of things and not mess up the house too badly. Finger painting is great. Lots of art supplies. Collecting old toilet paper rolls with markers and crayons, or various boxes of different sizes, like cereal boxes and tape. And see if they can make gifts for maybe an unsung hero, someone that goes out of their way to pay attention to them, that they're really happy to have in their lives. They don't have to say who it is. Maybe it's a friend or a relative that they don't see every day. And then they can share that with their friend over the internet, or when things get back to normal and we can have more face-to-face, it'll be there. But in the meantime, they can share it through pictures and things like that. So would you like me to talk about setting up a positive learning environment next?
Yes, so as a teacher with years of classroom experience, can you talk a bit about how children learn and how that then will translate into setting up a positive learning environment at home? Well, you already talked about how children learn. It's critical for everyone's sanity, and especially for children. Can you talk about the things that we should keep in mind?
Yeah, for sure. And this applies to parents and grandparents too, because I know that often it's the grandparents that are at home looking after the children. Well, yeah, this is
Was
a
it
good spot
supposed to?
for
Yes,
just a moment.
yeah, keep this one.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, just for a moment. Yeah, and so there's a lot of busyness. And yeah, go to the next slide and I'll just explain what that's about. So we have to keep in mind that, you may have children of various ages, and you can't treat them all equally, but you can treat them all with equality. And this slide really says that. So the tall person on the left is fine with that extra box, but the short person given the same size box is not able to see the game. So how do you treat your children individually? They all have individual needs, and we have to keep that in mind. So learning is fun. And you're encouraged to frame it that way with your children. Model learning something new and have your children teach you something that you may not know about. My son was in French immersion and I had no French background. And he had to teach me. He had trouble in math in grade 1. And so the teacher, wrote the directions in French. And so I said, well, what does it say? So he translated, and then I could help him with the math. So the same with piano. I sat with him for years as he learned piano. I didn't know how to play piano, but so he was teaching me from a very young age. When children need to concentrate, for example, with a writing assignment or with math, then it's good to provide a quiet space away from the family hubbub. So a desk or a table in another room is ideal, or even if some children really want to stay in the company in the living room area, which is fine, but if you could maybe have a table that faces a wall or is in a corner, someplace where they're not as easily distracted. And sometimes as teachers, we'll set up like hard-covered books in a V, like we'll stand them up on end so that the students aren't distracted by their peripheral vision either. So that's a good way to deal with a quiet activity that they really need to think about. Help children understand the guidelines around interrupting. Also interrupting someone who is thinking, and practice that as a family. So discuss what it feels like to be interrupted. How do you know when you shouldn't interrupt someone? One thing that you could do as the working parent is say, when I wear my cap, I'm busy and I can't be interrupted. That's when mom is working. When the cap comes off, then you can talk to me. So that's one way of dealing with that. You have to set up something that works for your kids, and a visual is often a good way to do that. Next slide.
Okay.
So this is a slide of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So as human beings, we have basic needs as indicated in the lower 3 tiers of this triangle. And once those basic needs are met, only then are children able to do their schoolwork, for example, because that comes in the upper 2 layers. So the very bottom layer is the physiological layer. So breathing, food and water, we need those kinds of things. Secure. If a child comes to school and they're worried about where they get their next meal, they're not likely to focus on academics, for example. Safety. So for children, that means, is there physical safety in the space? Or is there emotional safety in the space? So for example, if children are, playing a lot of games where they scare each other, they might not feel emotionally safe if that game doesn't end when it's time to work on schoolwork. They might be scared someone's going to sneak up on them all the time. For example, that's just an example of something from my childhood where that happened. So just set really good emotional safety boundaries as well as physical, and talk to your children about what makes sense, especially the older ones. For the younger ones, I find 4-year-olds can engage in those conversations too. They're just a little less sophisticated. Routine is critical. In school, we have routines like settling in when the bell first rings, then you have first subject, second subject, and then you have a recess break. That includes a snack, and then another block of time, and then it's lunch, and so on. Children need predictability. So have a flexible routine that is predictable for your children. So I'll give you an example. So at home, you could get up, get ready for your day, have some adult playtime, learn and play while the adults work. So that would be school time for school-age children too. And then it's kind of recess time. So you have a snack and a short playtime with an adult. At school recess is about 15 minutes, so it really isn't that long. And during that time, it's important to get up and move and stretch. Maybe put some music on to change the intensity of change the quality of the atmosphere in the house. And then another learning and playtime again while the adults are working. And then a lunchtime. And in a lunchtime, it might be a good time to get outside for a bit with the children. And then another time of learning or play while the adults work. And then it's help the adult with dinner prep. And then have dinner and help clean up from dinner. And then another playtime or learning time, and then an evening snack, and then story time, cuddles, and prepare for sleep. So that's an example of a day that could be rather flexible, but yet predictable. And at school, as teachers, we often write those times on the board so that the children know what to expect, and it brings up a sense of peace for them. Next slide.
Okay.
So this says in studio with Margaret Boersma. That's a picture of me. It's going to say the name of a program that I'm offering to parents and teachers for free. And it's going to start next week, and it's called Deep Learning from Home. So this is an opportunity for you to either work as a parent and go to my YouTube channel where I'll be housing these series. And it's a bunch of lessons, probably 20 to 30 minutes at the most, I would say, to learn through the arts. So the arts isn't something that teachers are providing right now unless they integrate it with their core subjects. And I'm an arts specialist as well as a classroom specialist. So I integrate everything along with social and emotional learning, which we're talking a lot about on this program right now. So that's when you go to my website, you'll be able to tune into Deep Learning from Home. So stay tuned for that. I think it will be an opportunity for you to work, and it will also be an opportunity to engage in deeper conversations with your children and with your family about some of these essential skills they need for the 21st century, which I'm calling social and emotional learning. Yeah. Just before we go to the next slide, I'll just give you that's okay, 10 helpful tips for working with home with children. Set up your own workstation, set up a homework station, and some of this is a review. I've already said some of these. Create zones for your children to play in. So you can play in this part of the house, but in this part of the house, not. You know, set up zones. They're used to that at school as well. Eat regularly and hydrate. Add movement to your day. Critical. Kids move. Kids are moving machines. If you don't give them a chance to let it out, then they'll let it out when it's inappropriate. So lots of movement. I'll be doing lots of movement in my program as well. Explore the power of books. Make time for music. Set cleanup times throughout the day, and balance screen time, not too much, and include quiet times. So now I'll do the next slide.
Okay. Yeah, next slide. Sorry. And did you want to say more about arts? Arts help children learn deeply and express their emotions. Yeah. Can you say more about that and give us some ideas we can do at home?
Sure. So music, for example, this guy loves to sing. Not all of us do, but kids do. Most kids really do. Creative movement or dance, pretending or drama, we call it, visual arts, and creative writing. Those are some of the art forms that are essential for children to grow and develop. So here are some ideas. If you don't have any dress-up clothes at home, you pull out some of your old clothes from your closet. Kids love wearing clothes that are way too big for them, and let them pretend. Let them put them on as costumes. They'll create plays and pretend for a very long time. Have them take photos of each other depending on their age, or you can do it, and share them with friends online. Here's another idea. Have your children create rhythm patterns they can repeat. You can use pots and pans and wooden spoons, but if that's too loud for you, maybe they can tap on a pillow. But at any rate, they can create different rhythm patterns and then repeat them and then record it. Another thing you can do with rhythm patterns is create a pattern for songs that they know, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or I'm a Little Teapot. So it might sound like, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. And then at supper time, have them clap one of the rhythms of the song and see if you can guess, or if someone else at the table can guess what the song is. For both younger and older children, I like to play music, different types of music, and pretend I can't hear the music. So they have to show me how the music sounds with their bodies. And so we'll be doing that on the little lessons that I give to, and it's a really easy way to have children get rid of their energy, to express themselves. And I always tell them the music tells you what to do. So it's nothing to prepare for. It's great. I used to do it all the time with kindergartens when they walked in from outside, and they see how fast they could take their outdoor clothes off, because I was doing this in the room and they couldn't wait to get in there. Yeah, so we're ready for the next question and the next slide.
So the next question, social and emotional development is essential for all children. Can you provide some ideas of how we can support our children with their emotions?
All right, so I just love this slide. It's about words that connect a parent with a child and words that disconnect. So if you can, I'm just going to read it across the page, and you can, it's very clear why the connecting words are so much better and more meaningful to build that relationship with your children while they're home. So if the child is crying, stop crying and tell me what you need. That's very demanding, versus you would like me to listen and you sound very frustrated. So that's validating their feelings, and everyone needs their feelings validated. Or, no, I don't want to hear that whining. It's not pleasant. So that's disconnection with the child, and it's judgmental. Instead, one could say, I'd like to hear you. Come, sit next to me. So you're acknowledging that they have needs and you're inviting them to connect. Or, I'm right here. There's no reason for you to whine. Come on, I can't understand you. So it's minimizing their expression of their emotion, and it's judging and blaming. Instead, we could say, let's try again. Take a deep breath and be okay with where your child is at now. Don't demand, and focus on regulating the emotion. Or, next time, use your big girl words, or no one will want to help you. So that's placing shame and guilt and punitive consequences, which equals fear. Instead, we could say, I can help you best when you use your words. Let's try that next time. Then when you feel upset, you can, and then you could give a suggestion. So it's offering to help. So those are good things to keep in mind, because when we're stressed and our children are stressed, it could be at different times and it could be at the same time. But we need to be the one that de-escalates the situation. So sometimes just taking a deep breath or two and letting it out slowly and doing it with your children is a really good way to help yourself and your child to learn how to calm yourself. And they will learn it by mimicking you. You can do, with older children, you can do role plays with this as well. For example, you can get them to, like, if child A has been on the computer too long and child B wants to have a turn on the computer and is upset, how would that work out when they use disconnecting words? And how does it work out when they use connecting words? And then talk about it. So this is an activity you could even do around the supper table, depending on how old your children are. But what's really important is reflecting on how it feels. How does it feel to be spoken to with the disconnecting words versus the connecting words? And how can we remind each other as members of a family to use the connecting words? And then say, how do you feel now, and talk about it. Developing a growth mindset is critical. So rather than saying, this is too hard, teach your children, and you model this. This is hard, but hard work will help me get it. Or ask your child, what did you try hard at today? And you could ask adults around the table too. I envision that you have supper together. I might be wrong, but at a time when you're together, is a good time to ask those kind of things. What did you work hard at today? So something that required a little bit of effort, because we need to praise our children for effort more than the result or the product of something. Effort will bring success. Albert Einstein said, "It's not that I'm smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." And children need to be praised for effort so they can stay with the problems longer, and then they'll succeed. Using stories or role play with parents and setting up video chats or phone calls with other children are great ways to practice social and emotional learning. SEL, it's called. And you can look it up online. It's the big buzzword right now. And it's what we used to call people skills or the soft skills, but they're becoming much more prominent in education right now. And in the Deep Learning at Home series I'll be doing, children can participate with other children by watching the recordings at the same time. So that could be fun. And for this time, focus your mind on what you can control. And this is something, a message your children can have as well. I can see this time as an opportunity. This is for me. I see it as an opportunity to get off the hamster wheel that our society was on for so long, and to get close to our children and to have family conversations about the things, about what's really important to us in life, just to find our humanity again. To be a hero, here's a definition. A hero is an ordinary person put in an extraordinary circumstance, who steps up and takes action, proactively goes out and answers the call. Your children can be heroes too. Light up someone's day every day, and let your children also figure out how to do that and be creative about it. Be grateful. Instill an attitude of gratitude in your children. For example, go around the table every evening, each person contributing to what they are grateful for that day. Be original. Being grateful helps establish a positive mindset, and a positive mindset empowers us and gives us resilience. Next slide. Here is a ladder of accountability. This is what you can aspire to with your children and everyone in your family. A lot of adults aren't at the top of the ladder yet either. Prepare our children for a new normal, whatever it looks like, and this chart will help. So if you look at the chart, there's a line in the middle across the middle. It's the clarity threshold. So underneath that is the unaccountable or reactive person, a person who says, well, I'm just waiting and hoping, or they use I can't kind of excuses. They blame others and they're unaware. So what they might be saying is, I'm waiting for, or I can't do that because, or it's not my decision, or it's not my fault, or I didn't even know you wanted that. So I know a lot of adults that are also learning and building their going up the ladder of accountability, and we need to be gentle with each other, especially at this time. And this is something that your children need to learn as well. And when you're above that middle line there, you're often heard, you have attitude like, I'll make it happen, I'll make decisions, and you do, and you find solutions and you own it. So what comes out of the mouths of people like that is, I'll get it done, I have made this decision. Any issues? I'm planning on doing this. Any concerns? I understand what you want and we'll make it happen, or make sure it happens. So you can see that there's a big difference between the two zones, and we like to bring our children up to climb that ladder and to take ownership for their actions and what they're saying and what they're doing, how they're expressing their emotions, and we need to model that as well. All right, yeah, next slide. So I've given you some resources and information. It's all online kind of stuff, and I'm really aware that there are people, especially in rural areas, who don't have good internet, and so if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. So here I've got different articles. TVO has some programs on. Some of these articles are fantastic. I won't itemize them all, but you can see what it is. the importance of the creative arts for children and teens. And then the next slide. My friend was an she does voiceovers now, and she used to run her own studio, or not studio, but she used to hire artists to go out into the schools and do creative storytelling. And now she's reading stories to children online. So her name is Jean Rossellino, and her connection is right there. So children can be read to while you get some work done. I also know of this performer. He's a musician, and he does concerts, and he does free concerts, and I think he's doing them every Wednesday now. So you can tap into that site there, Dave Rush, and that's free. Both of them are free. And then Not Business as Usual is a really good article that will help you as parents. Next slide. And this is a PlayDoh recipe. So there's lots of them online, but if you're not online, I wrote it, I mean, it's there in printing for you. As well, my blog on my website, which is on the next slide, I believe, yeah, is full of practical suggestions for teachers, but it can be for you too as parents. I have things on there like how to teach responsibility at home, and fun ways to get children reading, and tips for social and emotional learning, and a lot more. So you can have a look and see if you can glean from what I've been writing to teachers over the last few years. So be safe, reach out to me if you'd like to talk, or write me an email. I love to connect with parents to find out exactly what's happening so that I can make my Deep Learning at Home series really applicable and hit the nail on the head to help you and to serve you as you take care of your children at home. Let me see, remember to sign up for that. It's going to be up on my website in the next day or two, an opportunity to sign up for that. And then you'll be guided to my YouTube channel, which is, and then you'll be able to watch it whenever you want. That's what I have for you till now.
Thank you, Margaret. That was very, very informative with lots of very helpful tips. And we have 2 questions so far. Okay. And I think there might be, a couple other people are typing, so I'm sure we will get a few more. First question is, do you have any suggestions for a schedule or a way to support our kids who are home alone all day, supervised by a 13-year-old sibling who's also trying to do his own schoolwork? We are both full-time essential workers, and now school takes the whole evening too.
Okay, I'm hearing your question. Yes, I feel for you. School should not take up all the precious family time that there is. I would suggest having a routine like I laid out earlier, and have the 13-year-old maybe have check-in points with one of the parents or a neighbor that can drop by phone or by Zoom, or somehow. You have to have some adult connection in there, because a 13-year-old, that's really young to have that kind of responsibility. But definitely set up a routine, something that's predictable, something that all the children know that they need to follow, and stay connected with them. Have an adult connect with them, because if you're an essential worker, you probably can't check in a whole lot during the day, but random check-in points would be really essential. And then I would say family time is critical. Right now, everyone's going through loss. Everyone is grieving. Your children need you. They don't need to do academics at that time. So if at all possible, if they have a hard question that they need to ask you, that's one thing. But spending 2 hours a night on schoolwork when it wasn't done during the day, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Thank you, Margaret. I think, was a good answer. And having that permission that may not always be the most important thing. And children learn through many things. So it may not have to be their actual schoolwork. So, you know, in all these arts things and other things, they may find things that they can do during the day that will keep them busy without having to necessarily focus on the academic work. Next question we have, do you have suggestion for finding balance with screen time for older children for whom video games, wearing headsets is a primary social connection to friends right now?
It is, and that's how they get lost in their world and get to escape from the current world, and I get it. I would say that if your children are young, they need a lot less they should have a lot less screen time, because there is brain research that shows that screen time does something that's not positive for the brain, like even especially in teenagers actually. It's something to look up. I did a production with it once with teenagers, and what happens inside the brain when teenagers are always on their devices, and it's worth looking up. I would limit screen time, even if you're not always there to supervise it. Get the children to supervise each other, and not to make them tattletales, but I think we can have them encourage each other, and then maybe write down how much screen time, because children are not aware of it. We're not aware of how much screen time we're actually getting, because we get into a state of flow and then we lose track of time. So setting alarms, even if you have like an alarm on the stove for the oven, or setting some kind of alarm so that your children become aware of, oh, I've already reached my quota. Yeah, definitely.
That's definitely not an easy question and answer, Margaret, because screen time is really, right now, it is everything. It is everything. It is schoolwork, it is home, like work for parents, possibly. It is connection with others. It is just everything. It's the lifeline we have to the world at the moment. So it's a very challenging way to do that. I think what may help is using some of what you mentioned, your arts pieces, for example, music and move, rather than just sitting, soaking it in, which I think that piece refers to. That you mentioned some of it, not all of it, I know, but making it an active and interactive, and talking about it and reflecting about it is also hugely important. You know, discussing what we've seen and what we've done. So yeah, just because we had this discussion, just some of these things just came up recently and something else I was attending, so I thought I would add that to it. We
but
do
just
have
be careful how much, just be careful what kind of games your children are playing. Are they edifying or are they not edifying? If they're shooting games and that kind of games, stay away from it. Try and find games that build a kingdom, or that, you know, involve some creativity. If they have to be on screen with their friends, maybe it could be in a positive way.
Okay, we've got one more question here, so we want to cover that, and then I just want to talk about a couple of other resources that you can reach to. Is it possible to keep routine suggestions of how, my son is 2 years old and used to go into daycare. He has difficulty with naps, even though we read, have dark settings, etc. And my husband and I are both working from home. So how do you establish a routine in that kind of setting?
Maybe the 2-year-old needs a lot of activity before nap time, so he's tired.
Yeah, there's a whole theory on, I think it's SleepEat Activity. It is somewhere. I don't remember where it is, but it's definitely having enough activity to balance the nap time is possibly what he needs, and then the quiet time just before.
Right.
Yeah, probably not an easy thing, but hopefully you'll find something that works for him. or he's maybe just a very busy boy. And actually that brings me to one more question that didn't come up here, but I have heard from a couple of other parents that may not have been able to attend tonight, is any children with any special needs or some learning disabilities, do you have any tips or any additional resources where they could go?
I think storytelling times with Jean Rossellino would be great. Also, the arts activities I suggested would be great. There aren't, like, most of the things that I've suggested would probably work for them too, but I don't know the particular situation, so I can't address it specifically.
No, you're probably right. I would imagine that too. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is just some of the resources from Best Start. And for like the anyone who's got younger children, learning to play and playing to learn is a great little, I don't know why that popped up there. Oh, sorry, one slide back. Great resource. It's online. You can see it there. I took a quote out of it: play is the true work of a child. When children play, they learn. For example, when children are lifting, dropping, looking, pouring, bouncing, hiding, building, knocking down, climbing, running, and role-playing, they are learning. And remember this: you are always your child's first teacher, greatest role model, and greatest friend as well. So children need you anyway. So just always remember that. Another piece I want to bring to your attention there is that our website, Children See, Children Learn, if you're finding what do you do for positive discipline. Now, a lot of this talks too about outside stuff, but inside stuff fits there quite well as well. Take a look at this, some nice little videos that show sort of that connecting, keeping it positive, helping children set limits themselves, that kind of thing. So a really good way to look at it, especially if you're really stressed with, you know, having to manage everything. There are some other great resources. The World Health Organization just came out with 6 tip sheets on parenting during COVID-19. Oops, it keeps doing that to me. And then there are also a bunch of local parenting programs that may not be operating in their typical sense, but they are trying to do some online stuff. So don't think everything is closed. Like I was talking to someone from the YMCA the other day. They are switching their in-person workshop to an online workshop. Maybe not everyone has everything up and running, but most programs are really trying to make impact so that they can still offer you some of the things that they were doing before in other ways of doing it. So just once more, does anyone have any other questions? If you don't right now, because I think our time is up, then please just send us questions. My email is at the end. I think Margaret's email was somewhere, and if not, you've seen our website and there's a way to connect with her. So you can do that. So please connect with us if you've got any specific questions or even any comments or feedback. And thank you so much for coming in the evening and giving up your precious time. And thank you again for being parents and just being there for your children. And thank you, Margaret, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we will say goodbye, everyone. Bye.